This one I'm calling It's Not Black and White, and it's another way that I approach a painting when it's nowhere near resolved, when it's got into that kind of messy middle. What I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to mix up some paints. I'm going to mix up something very, very dark and something very, very light out of the colours that I've been using. So first of all, just getting any white, titanium white I use, and getting some of that into a pot. With white, you need a lot more than you do when you're mixing with black, simply because it takes the colours a lot more. So when I'm mixing with white, I won't put much of the other colours in, but what I'm going to do is put a little bit in of each of the colours that I've been working with. Not much, but just a little. And then I'm going to mix it up with the white and see what I get and what I might need to add more of. So you can see I'll just put a little bit of water in. I used a distilled water because the paint will last longer with it. So the green's really taken quite strongly in that white. And I'm just making, I don't like using straight white or straight black, but I like it to be close. So I really need a bit more warmth in there. It's looking a little bit greeny. You can see the colour there. It's not quite where I want it. I'm going to put a little bit more of the magenta in there. And let's have a look. It's looking like quite a nice neutral. Quite a nice neutral colour in there. I'll just probably keep it around about there. Depending on how much colour you really want in that light colour, you can just keep adding, but I like it to be quite neutral. And now I'm going to do the same but with black. So here's my black. I don't use as much black, but I'm going to need more of the other colours. So I'll pour some of that magenta in there, some of the blue, and a little bit of the gold. I might not put the green in, and I'll get a brush to stir that up with, and you get quite a nice deep black. Well, it's black, but it's got the other colours in it, so it gives a nice colour for me to work with. Just add a little bit of water to that. And there you've got a good deep, it's almost ready. So I might add a little bit more of the magenta because I quite like that sort of deep red plum colour in my art. So there you go. That's what we're going to be working with. The not black and not white. Okay, so I've got my nearly black and my nearly white, and the painting that at the moment doesn't have enough contrast, which is why I go to the most extremes. And I don't like, as I said before, using completely white or completely black. So I choose colours from the painting itself, and I make them as dark as I can go and as light as I can go. Because I know that these two combined is going to make the biggest difference to a painting. So I'll just start off putting on the darkest. And I'm using a very long brush here because I like my strokes to not be too perfect. So I'm just going to get some of this dark on here with shapes that I work with to get more interest in some of the areas. I like doing lots of kind of like marks that are my marks. That's something that we'll be going more into in the actual online courses, finding your marks. But these loose, circular, straight lines are things that I like working with, and I often put too many of them on and then cover them over. But as you can see, working with these really dark colors, you get some pretty interesting and dynamic marks there. I'm going to move now to the lighter or the whiter version, and if you see when the white or the lightest hits the darkest, that's where you get the biggest contrast and the most interest. So I'm just going to put a few of these on. And I do love it when they intersect a little bit as well, because it does get some interesting contrasting things going on there as well. Now I will be bringing other colours into this painting, but at this moment I'm just trying to give myself some really nice, bold things that I can then work on top of. And like I say, with the blacks and the whites, or the nearly blacks and the nearly whites, you're going to get the most dynamic changes to the painting. So even if I come over the top of that with a glaze or with something else, you'll have these patterns and these strokes that are interesting that will add to the layers in the painting at a later stage. I also quite like it when they intersect together and they become a mixture, almost grey, but again, this has got all the colours in it, as does this. Even though it probably to the camera it looks very white and very black, all of the colours that I'm using in this palette are in the darkest and the lightest. So I know it's going to work really well together. So that's that one. I'll bring on something else now, one of the other canvases. And again, I'm going to use the dark in a different way this time, but I'm just going to bring some nice bigger strokes in with the darkest dark. So it gives me quite a good amount of contrast now there, and you'll notice that when I pull in even just this tiniest amount of this, how much it shows up next to that. Then even scraping into that, you can really see the colours underneath. But it still keeps that dynamics because it's got such high contrast. You've got the pink and you've got the blackest black or the nearly black, and then you've got the nearly white. So already that painting has given me a lot more to work with. And I'll just bring on the last one. And see, this one here, when I'm looking at it, has quite a lot of the dark. So I might just kind of pull in some of the white again into some of the areas. Not be quite as generous as I was on the other two paintings, because I don't think it really needs it, but just bringing some of those shapes in to these areas. Needs a little bit more busyness in some of the areas, and by highlighting these very light areas, again, they'll jump out at me when or if I bring a layer of glazes over the top. So I've given myself high contrast, and I've taken the painting off somewhere else. And now I just need to look at what I do next. But hopefully you get an idea of what using your two greatest contrasts can do to bring a painting to life.